Okay. Greetings, brothers and sisters. Tonight, slide. Tonight's October 3rd, 2023. This will be our second session of the course of African philosophy. We'll be reading lesson 1 titled Intelligence, Education, Universal Knowledge, and How to Get It. As always, first thing that we want to do to officially open up our meetings is pledge to the red, black, and green flag. So if you would, please say it with me, and we can officially open up the class. I commit my body,
mind, spirit
to the protection, defense,
and security
to the protection,
black
and green. I
dedicate my life
to the redemption
of Mother Africa
and
the liberation of her scattered black
children. I accept for myself
and my descendants the teachings of universal African nationalism.
And I promise
that our children will be instilled
with the purpose and knowledge
of themselves
as African people,
in order that the cause of our struggle will neither falter nor fail
until all
black people are free and united through one God, one aim, one destiny.
Race first.
Race first.
Yes. Her official procedure was supposed to say the pledge together in unison, not call and response. In the mass meeting, and with new members, we obviously do call and response. This is one of the basic officer responsibilities, is knowing the pledge to the UNIA flag. I hate when I put RBG in here. Any questions or comments on the previous lesson before we get going?
I do, President. Greetings.
Greetings, Lady President.
I have a question. So I seen it said introduction. So I got the book. Is it mine goes from, do I have the introduction here? No, I have the note, I have the contents, I have the philosophy, then I have lesson 1. So is it an introduction is what I'm asking? Because I think,
well, no, there's not an official introduction. I'm just calling for short way of saying the foreword and the preface.
Okay, gotcha.
So when I say introduction, I'm talking about the foreword and the preface. Anybody else? Any questions on what we read yesterday? Well, not yesterday, last week. So. Okay, well, I got some questions for us. A little pop quiz. We have to, as we go through this, it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be very tiresome at times. We're not going to want to do it. So the preface and the foreword give me an additional boost, and as I've always said, a level of understanding of why this is so important, and hopefully encourage us to complete the course. First question I want to ask, how many aims and objectives are there of the UNIA-ACL?
$11.
11, yes. I got another question. Out of the 11, do we know which one of those aims and objectives addresses this course? I may have to pull up my
The first one?
The first one, no. What is the first one? Are you just saying numbers?
No, the first one is to establish a universal confraternity among the race.
Yes. That's our organizational directive. We have to organize all of our people all over the world into one body, this confraternity known as the Universal Negro Improvement Association. But no, it's not the first one. Which of the aims and objectives? This is very important, very critical. We have to internalize these aims and objectives. These are constitutional directives. Okay, all right. Well, I'm gonna call time.
Number 9.
Number 9. There you go. Yeah, you probably had to count them too. So let's see. So these are not numbered. Obviously, this is directly from the Constitution, and this one to establish. Oh man, okay. I just clicked over here. To establish colleges, academies, and schools for the racial education and culture of the people. That's the 9th aim of the UNIA-ACL. We'll talk about this more in the later lessons, but it's just something that's good to have an association of. This is a direct objective from the Constitution and from the establishment of the organization. We have an obligation to have our own institutions. So, as I said, we'll talk about that more in later chapters. Thank you, Brother Art. Questions, comments before we proceed?
What are we reviewing last week's stuff?
Yes, right now we are.
Okay, I was like, wait a second.
Yes, this is not. Yeah, I'm not going. Yeah, we're going to read lesson 1 together, but this is just a recap of last week, making sure we're understanding what I consider the importance of the text, why this text is important.
Okay.
What members of the UNIA-ACL was the course of African philosophy created for? Who was the course created for?
Recording in progress.
For the leaders.
For the leaders, for the leaders at what specific time or what and during what situation?
It was created for the leaders of the first golly. The first group of students who were the top leaders that Garvey chose, right?
Yes, he did handpick the students. Anybody know what I'm looking for?
Negro peoples of the world.
No. Oh, let me find it. Yeah, I gotta pull it out the book now. Yeah, here we go. Leaders was in the ballpark. The immediate purpose of the course of African philosophy was to train a cadre of UNIA leaders who would carry on the great work of the organization after Garvey's death. That's what I was looking for, is for the leaders to carry on the work of the organization after Garvey's death. But we got the leaders part of it. Do we know how many classes Garvey taught and how many students were in each class?
He taught 2 classes.
Taught 2 classes. You remember the years?
37 and 39.
37 and 38. The graduates were announced in 39. But yeah,
Okay.
37 and 38. He taught 2 classes. Do we know how many graduates there were out of those 2 classes?
11 in the first and 7 in the second.
So there were 10 graduates in the first course. There was one, and that was my last question. Did everyone graduate? There was one brother who was listed from the first class that did not graduate. The course says that he continued, but in the second class, he wasn't announced. He might have been scheduled to be announced for the third class, but at any rate, 10 students in the first year, 7 students in the second year, total of 17 students taught by Garvey. Next question, how many students became president generals? The highest
3.
office in the UNIA.
3.
3, yes, sir. Do you remember their names? Do you remember their names?
James, golly, I can't think of his last name, man. Let me see. It was James, Charles James,
Yes, sir.
Thomas, oh man, Thomas Harvey,
Yes, sir.
and wow,
Who got the third one? These are exam questions, FYI.
yeah, put off guard, yeah. What's his name? Thomas.
Attorney Emotep, I think you helped us out last week. We got Thomas Harvey. We got Charles L. James.
Stewart.
Yes. James R. Stewart. So that might have been the confusion with the James, but his first name is James, last name Stewart. He was the 2nd president general. Thomas W. Harvey was 4th, and Charles L. James was 5th. You don't need to know the order, but we do need to know these individuals that were in the first class and went on to become president generals. Is my camera on? I ain't have my camera on. I'm sorry. Next question. Who wrote this text? Who edited this text? And who authorized this text? 3 different answers. Who wrote this text? Who was credited as the author?
Garvey.
Garvey. Marcus Garvey authored this course. Who edited this course?
Garvey.
No, not Garvey. The text was published actually in 86. I think it was written in or compiled in 85, published in 86. That's 46 years after Garvey's death. Garvey is credited as being the author, but there was someone else that was the editor.
Not his wife.
No, not his wife. He was appointed, as we learned from the previous lesson, he was appointed the authentic historian of the life
Tony
of
Martin.
Tony Martin. Yes, sir. And who authorized the text? Who authorized the writing of the text?
Was it his wife?
No.
Oh, Charles James.
Yes, Charles L. James. Edited by Tony Martin. And as we learn in the preface and foreword, Tony Martin was authorized by the Honorable Charles L. James. Everybody good on those?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next question. Who was the best student? And why was the best student hesitant to enroll in the course? Who was the best student in the course?
Charles L. James.
Charles L. James, yes. And why was he hesitant to enroll in the course?
Because he felt like he knew everything.
Absolutely. I forgot the exact words, but he felt like he had been around Garvey since 1923. He had been a vice president, and he felt like he had enough, and Garvey would best spend his time with someone else. So he actually used the word ego. Due to his ego, he felt like he didn't need to go through the course. Everybody good on that? Number 7, what does the course of African philosophy represent? And what is it in the editor's opinion and Garvey's opinion? But first, what does the course of African philosophy represent? It represents as it were, and I believe this is in the foreword. I'll find it while y'all are looking up. What does this course represent? In the preface, I'm sorry, not the foreword.
The only work that Garvey himself authored.
Yes, you would get credit for that because you're not wrong. Anybody else before I go to the answer?
The immediate purpose of the course of African philosophy was to train a cadre of UNIA leaders.
No,
Who
that was who the book is for and what it's for. That's what I'm looking for. I'm gonna go to it for the sake of time. It represents, as it were, the last political will and testament of a man who stands without equal in the history of worldwide mobilization of African peoples. But we should definitely understand that and take this course as the last political will and testament of Garvey. So we, imagine ourselves as children of Garvey. We have his will, we have his wishes, and if we are to be loyal children, we should be fulfilling the will and wish of our spiritual father. So, just a responsibility for us as Garveyites. Questions, comments? The other parts I'm not going to get into. Garvey said this was a strict, rigid course, very difficult, but mainly both said that the intentions were to instill an Afrocentric point of view. So those were the opinions of Garvey and the editor in short. What was the requirement to pass the course as it was taught by Garvey? I don't know who owner is. Owner, you got to speak up in 1 minute or you got to go.
I think I'm on my phone and I've got my computer. I think that might be.
Turn it off. Turn off the
You may
computer.
turn on the audio for the computer so you could check. It's off now.
Yeah, turn on the audio. Let me see if
Let me say I'll turn it on. Join with computer audio.
okay. All right.
Testing. Is that
I see it. You're fine. It
Oh.
matched with what you were doing.
I'll turn it off because of the echo though.
Okay.
All right.
So what was the requirement to pass the courses taught by Garvey? What did our ancestors have to go through? There's 2 things.
I think they had to get into groups and study for a certain number of days. I mean hours.
Yes, but they were studying for a particular reason. It's something else, not just the study in itself. We're studying now, but we're studying for a particular reason as well.
To inculcate and learn the material properly.
Yes, but how do we show our proficiency? Okay, playing around.
That's spreading the word.
It says studying?
Going to the community, into the community, and bringing members in, more members in.
Also by teaching it too ourselves.
I feel like I'm not doing a good job.
We just didn't study, to be honest, or outside of the class. Well, at least I didn't get a chance to.
What was the question?
What was the requirements?
Right, okay. Here we go. What were the requirements to pass the courses taught by Garvey? Number one, they were required to write out each lesson in their own handwriting. So they had to basically copy each of the lessons, something that some of us have done. And the second thing is course was followed by examinations. They had to complete an examination and they had to write out each of the courses with their own hand. Questions, comments?
Okay, that's okay.
I want us to understand what our ancestors were willing to go through. So I feel that that is important. Where was I at? Okay. Last question. What were Garvey's two quotes to the people in Detroit, 1937? Basically at the end of the preface, right before we start the lessons, it kind of, for me, it summarizes the foreword and the preface in two succinct quotes. All right, y'all playing around. Y'all playing around. Answer is one was I have given them all I know.
All I know, and I'm trying to make everyone a Marcus Garvey
Garvey
personified.
Yes. All right. So keep that in mind. That's my focus as we go through these lessons, is doing my best to help us understand what Garvey is expressing as far as what he knows, and do our best to be Marcus Garvey's personified. I would challenge us at this point. Something that I've said in the past is, just a thought. I may be wrong, but before we could be Garveys, we have to be. Before we could be good Garveys, we have to be good Charles L. Jameses. So let's be good students. Let's internalize this knowledge as best we can, and complete the examination as best as we can.
We'll be more personified next week.
Right. This is the basic stuff. It's gonna get tough after this. So we got to do the reading for lesson 1. Lady President, you're gonna help us with the reading. This is the longest lesson in the text. It takes a little while to get through it. There's a lot here, and this is the foundation. So as we go through the questions, we'll probably go through the questions next week, but as we go through the questions, we just have to keep in mind that this is the foundation. This is the beginning for everything that we're gonna do moving forward. So the future lessons, they build upon each other. So we have to have a good foundation in order to understand lessons 6, 7, 8. We have to have a good foundation of lesson 1. Even lessons, 19, 20, 21, they all build upon lessons 1, 2, 3, 4, so forth and so on. So last call, any questions, comments before we start? Okay, Lady President, you have the floor.
Lesson 1, intelligence, education, universal knowledge, and how to get it. You must never stop learning. The world's greatest men and women were people who educated themselves outside of the university with all the knowledge that the university gives. And you have the opportunity of doing the same thing the university student does: read and study. One must never stop reading. Read everything that you can. Read everything that you can read that is of standard knowledge. Don't waste time. Don't waste time reading trashy literature. This is to say, don't pay any attention to the 10-cent novels, Wild West stories, and cheap sentimental books. But where there is a good plot and a good story in the form of a novel, read it. It is necessary to read it for the purpose of getting information on human nature. The idea is that personal experience is not enough for a human to get all the useful knowledge of life because the individual life is too short. So we must feed on the experience of others. The literature we read should include the biography and an autobiography of men and women who have accomplished greatness in their particular line. Whenever you can buy these books and own them whilst you are reading them, make pencil or pen notes of the striking sentences and paragraphs that you should like to remember, so that when you have to refer to the book for any thought that you would like to, refresh your mind, you will not have to read over the whole book. You should also read the best poetry for inspiration. The standard poets have always been the most inspirational creators. From a good line of poetry, you may get the inspiration for the career of a lifetime. Many a great men and women was first inspired by some attractive line or verse of poetry. There are good poets and bad poets, just like there are good novels and bad novels. Always select the best poets for your inspirational urge. Read history insistently until you master it. This means your own national history, the history of the world, social history, industrial history, and the history of the different sciences, but primarily the history of man. If you do not know what went on before you came and what is happening at the time you live, but away from you, you will not know the world and will be ignorant for the world and mankind. You can only make the best out of life by knowing and understanding it. To know, you must fall back on the intelligence of others who came before you and have left their records behind. To be able to read intelligently, you must first be able to master the language of your country. To do this, you must be well acquainted with its grammar and the science of it. Every 6 months, you should read over again the science of the language that you speak. Excuse me, so as not to forget its rules. People judge you by your writing and your speech. If you write badly and incorrectly, they become prejudiced towards your intelligence. And if you speak badly and incorrectly, those who hear you become disgusted and will not pay much attention to you, but in their hearts laugh at you. A leader who is to teach men and present any fact of truth to man must first be learned in his subject. Never write or speak on a subject you know nothing about, for there is always somebody who knows that particular subject to laugh at you or to ask you embarrassing questions that make others laugh at you. You can know about any subject under the sun, but you can know about any subject under the sun by reading about it. If you cannot buy the books outright and own them, go to your public circulating library in your district or town so as to get the use of those books. You should do that as you may refer to them for information. You should read at least 4 hours a day. The best time to read is in the evening after you have retired from your work and after you have rested before sleeping hours, but do so before morning. So that during your sleeping hours, what you have read may become subconscious. That is to say, planted in your memory. Never go to bed without doing some reading. Never, excuse me, never keep the constant company of anybody who doesn't know as much as you or is as educated as you, and from whom you cannot learn something or reciprocate your learning, especially if that person is illiterate or ignorant, because constant association with such a person will unconsciously cause you to drift into the peculiar culture of or ignorance of that person. Always try to associate with people from whom you can learn something. Contact with cultured persons and with books is the best companionship you can have and keep. By reading good books, you keep the company of the authors of the books or the subjects of the books when otherwise you could not meet them in the social contact of life. Never go down in intelligence to those who are below you, but if possible, help to lift them up to you, and always try to ascend to those who are above you and be their equal with the hope of being their master. Continue always in the application of the things you desire, educationally, culturally, or otherwise, and never give up until you reach the objective. And you can reach the objective if others have done so before you, proving by doing it, excuse me, proving by doing it that it is possible. In your desire to accomplish greatness, you must first decide in your own mind in what direction you desire to seek that greatness. And when you have so desired in your own mind, work unceasingly towards it. The particular thing that you may want should be before you all the time, and whatsoever it takes to get it or make it possible should be undertaken. Use your faculties and persuasion to achieve all you set your mind on. Try never to repeat yourself in any one discourse in saying the same thing over and over again, except you are making new points, because repetition is tiresome and it annoys those who hear the repetition. Therefore, try to possess as much universal knowledge as possible through reading, so as to be able to be free of repetition in trying to drive home a point. No one is ever too old to learn. Therefore, you should take advantage of every educational facility. If you should hear of a great man or woman who is to lecture or speak in your town on any given subject, and the person is an authority on the subject, always make time to go and hear him. This is what is meant by learning from others. You should learn there's two sides to every story, so as to be able to properly debate a question and hold your ground with the side that you support. If you only know one side of a story, you cannot argue intelligently nor effectively. As for instance, to combat communism, you must know about it. Otherwise, people will take advantage of you and win a victory over your ignorance. Anything that you are going to challenge, you must first know about it, so as to be able to defeat it. The moment you are ignorant about anything, the person who has the intelligence of that thing will defeat you. Therefore, get knowledge, get it quickly, get it studiously, but get it anyway. Knowledge is power. When you know a thing, you can hold your ground on that thing and win over your opponents on that thing. Those who hear you learn to have confidence in you and will trust your ability. Never, therefore, attempt anything without being able to protect yourself on it. For every time you are defeated, it takes away from your prestige, and you are not as respected as before. All the knowledge you want is in the world, and all that you have to do, is to go seeking it and never stop until you have found it. You can find knowledge or information about it in the public libraries if it is not on your own bookshelf. Try to have a book on it. Try to have a book and own it on every bit of knowledge you want. You may generally get these books at secondhand bookstores for sometimes 1/5 of the original value. Always have a well-equipped shelf of books. Nearly all information about mankind is to be found in the Encyclopedia Britannica. This is about mankind. This is an expensive set of books, but try to get them. Buy a complete edition for yourself and keep it at your home. And whenever you are in doubt about anything, go to it. You will find it there. The value of knowledge is to be used. The value of knowledge is to use it. It is not humanly possible that a person can retain all knowledge of the world, but if a person knows how to search for all the knowledge of the world, he will find it when he wants it. A doctor or a lawyer, although he passes examinations in college, does not know all the laws and does not know all the techniques of medicine, but he has the fundamental knowledge. When he wants a particular kind of knowledge, he goes to the medical books or law books and refers to the particular law or how to use the recipe of medicine. You must therefore know where to find your facts and use them as you want them. No one will know where you get them, but you will have the facts, and and by using the facts correctly, they will think you a wonderful person, a great genius, and a trusted leader. In reading, it is not necessary or compulsory that you agree with everything you read. You must always use or apply your own reasoning to what you have read based upon what you already know as touching the facts on what you have read. Pass judgment on what you read based upon these facts. When I say facts, I mean things that cannot be disputed. You may read thoughts that are old and opinions that are old and have changed since they were written. You must always search to find out the latest facts on that particular subject, and only when these facts are consistently maintained and what you read should you agree with them. Otherwise, you are entitled to your own opinion. Always have up-to-date knowledge. You can gather this from the latest books and the latest periodicals, journals, and newspapers. Read your daily newspaper every day. Read a standard monthly journal every month and a standard weekly magazine every week, a standard quarterly magazine every quarter, and by this you will find the new knowledge of the whole year in addition to the books you read, whose facts have not altered in that year. Don't keep old ideas, bury them as new ones come. Keep going, President. Any questions? Keep going. Okay. I read. Use every spare minute you'll have in reading.
I'm
If
sorry.
you
Hold
are-
on. I'm sorry. Mute. I'm seeing how much is left. Ooh. Yeah, it's a nice little bit. Yeah, I don't think we can really take a break. We gotta keep going. And if you need a break, let me know. I'll jump in.
I'm good. I thought you need to ask some questions or something.
Well, I mean, I guess we'll stop. Are there any questions thus far? Any observations? Anything stood out to anyone? Nothing yet.
Yes, one point. Garvey there in Jamaica was under the British rule, And the British had I don't know if you call it a caste system. I know that's what they introduced there in India, but the British had the royals. They had class divisions, and when you were in one class, you're not supposed to associate with people in other classes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe like the wealthy, they weren't royals, but the wealthy and middle class poor, they didn't associate with the different classes. In this country, the American Europeans, when they broke away or whatever, this history doesn't have that class division. And I thought, well, something Garvey wrote there about don't hang around people who aren't as intelligent as you are,
Mm-hmm.
because they'll bring you down, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But you try to help them, someone that isn't as intelligent as you are. But I was just wondering how much of the British class system affected his thoughts.
Good observation, Council General. When I first read this, that jumped out to me as well. Because we're taught and we promote this as a grassroots organization, not a, I think I use those words, not a bourgeoisie organization. And we're supposed to, the number one aim of the organization to build a universal confraternity. So that's everybody. But then it says to assist the needy and reclaim the fallen. Those are objectives 3 and 4. And I don't see how that's realistic if we're avoiding these people. So good observation. I have to read over it again. I know he talks about it more later on from a reputation standpoint, not being around certain people because you become associated with those people. But here, I believe he was specific. Yeah, never go down in intelligence to those who are below you, but if possible, lift them up to you, and always try to ascend to those who are above you and be their equal with hope of being their master. But again, this is specifically an intelligence. I'm trying to find where he was disparaging. Never keep constant company anyone who doesn't know as much as you or is as educated as you. So we got to look deep into it. Never keep the constant company of anyone who doesn't know as much as you or is as educated as you, and from whom you cannot learn something or reciprocate your learning, especially if that person is illiterate or ignorant, because constant association with such a person will unconsciously cause you to drift into the particular culture or ignorance of that person. So I think we have to take this all in context, not to constantly be around what Garvey considers ignorant people. We all are aware of the concept, iron sharpens iron. So if we want to continue to develop ourselves or even maintain our edge, so to speak, we have to be around the right individuals where we can keep that edge sharp. And then he specifies particularly, he goes into more depth about intelligence. Never go down in intelligence to those who are around you, but if possible, help to lift them up and always try to ascend to those who are above and be their equal with the hope of being their master. So it's constant association with those that are ignorant. Obviously, and that's why I said, like, the lessons build upon each other, because if we're in constant association or constant company of someone that is continuously ignorant, that questions our ability to affect the people around us. If after 12 months of being with somebody, we haven't convinced them to pick up a book, pick up a magazine, pick up an article, we have to question. It's difficult to say this because I know sometimes it can be family and things like that, but we have to. I don't want to say question the value of the relationship, but question the investment of time. And also you have to question if you're not affecting them in a positive way, are you sure that they're not affecting you in a negative way? And there's different ways to go into that.
It's just like if you're playing basketball and you're at a certain level, you don't want to play with people you can beat all the time. You want to play with people that challenge you to improve your skills and get better. He doesn't say you can't play with someone who's not as good as you, but if they're not as good, perhaps you can impart some skills on them.
Right.
But at the same time, if you play with people who are better than you, it'll challenge you to be at their level or even strive to be better than them.
Yes. And again, I want to stress the notes of constant company. He mentions that constant twice: constant company, constant association. So take that into context as well. We as it says later on, we have a responsibility to lift people up. So we have to be in contact to do that. But constant association, constant contact with those that are not benefiting us intellectually. Garvey cautions in this first lesson. Attorney Imhotep, what are your thoughts?
Very well said. I think you covered it, right from the lesson here. The opposite thoughts of trying to bring up those who may not be as intelligent as you are.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that is a stated goal.
Yes.
So yeah. So I thought you said it very well.
Thank you. Great. Yeah, I forgot what I was just gonna say. But great question. Any other questions? It's 9 o'clock. We still got quite a bit to complete for this lesson. We want to try to get through it today. Oh, but yeah, this is what I was gonna say. What we should understand from the foreword and the preface as well is this is a unique tone of Garvey. So as we go through it, some of it will jump out and as we just saw, it'll cause some questions, cause some concern. It may clash with what we've been taught or what we believe Garvey's philosophies are. So I encourage the questions. We really have to get down to the bottom of it, and not all of them. I don't think all questions will come out as smooth as this previous one, because Garvey, as we talked about in the preface and intro, he considered the majority of Negroes ignorant, and there's not really any way to argue around that. These are his opinions, at this point of his life. So, but yeah, anybody got any questions? Feel free. We want to make sure we're discussing this, and it helps me as well. It gives me a different insight, different perspective. Okay, Lady President, will you be able to continue?
How to read. Use every spare minute you have in reading. If you are going on a journey that will take you an hour, carry something with you to read for that hour until you have reached the place. If you are sitting down waiting for somebody, have something in your pocket to read until the person comes. Don't waste time. Anytime you think you have to waste, put it in reading something. Carry with you a small pocket dictionary and study words while waiting or traveling. While waiting or traveling, or a small pocket volume on some particular subject. Read through at least one book every week. Separate and distinct from your newspapers and journals. It will mean that at the end of 1 year, you have read 52 different subjects. After 5 years, you will have read over 250 books. You may be considered then a well-read man or a well-read woman, and there will be a great difference between you and the person who has not read one book. You will be considered intelligent, and the other person will be considered ignorant. You and that person, therefore, will be living in two different worlds. One the world of ignorance and the other world of intelligence. Never forget that intelligence rules the world and ignorance carries the burden. Therefore, remove yourself as far away from ignorance as possible and seek as much as possible to be intelligent. Your language being English, you should study English language thoroughly. To know the English language thoroughly, you ought to be acquainted with Latin because most of the English words are of Latin origin. It is also advisable that you know the French language because most of the books that you read in English carry Latin and French phrases and words. There is no use reading a page or a paragraph of a book or even a sentence without understanding it. If the paragraph has foreign words in it, go to the dictionary before you pass over the words if you don't know the meaning of the words. Never pass over a word without knowing its meaning. The dictionary and the books on word building that can be acquired from booksellers will help you greatly. I know a boy who was ambitious to learn. He didn't have the opportunity of an early school education because he had to work 10 hours a day. He was determined to learn. He took to work with him every day a simplified grammar. He would read and memorize passages and the rules of grammar while he worked. After 1 year, he almost an expert in the grammar of his language. He knew the different parts of speech. He could paraphrase, analyze, and construct sentences. He also took with him a pocket dictionary and he would write out 25 new words with their meanings every day and study these words and their meanings. After 1 year, he had a speaking vocabulary of more than 3,000 words. He continued this for several years, and when he became a man, he had a vocabulary of over 15,000 words. He became an author because he could write in his language. He could write in his language because he had command of the words. What he wrote was his experience, and he recorded his experience in the best words of his language. At the same time, he was not able to write poetry, and so he took with him to work what is called a copying book, and he practiced the copying of letters until he was able to write a very good hand. He naturally became acquainted with literature, and so he continued reading extensively. When he died, he was one of the greatest scholars the world ever knew. Apply the story to yourself. There is nothing in nature. I'm sorry. There is nothing in the world that you want that you cannot have, so long as it is possible in nature and men have achieved it before. The greatest men and women in the world burn the midnight lamp. That is to say, when their neighbors and households are in bed, they are reading, studying, and thinking. When they rise in the morning, they are always ahead of their neighbors and their household and their household in the thing that they were studying, reading, and thinking of. A daily repetition of that would carry them daily ahead and above their neighbors and household. Practice this rule. It was wise to study a couple of subjects at a time. As for instance, a little geography, a little psychology, a little ethics, a little theology, a little philosophy, a little mathematics, a little science on which a sound academic education is built. By doing this week after week, month after month, year after year, you will be so learned in the liberal arts as to be ready and fit for your place in the affairs of the world. If you know what others do not, if you know what others do not know, they will want to hear you. You will then become invaluable in your community and to your country because men and women will want to hear you and see you everywhere. As stated before, books are one's best companions. Try them and keep them. A method of doing so is every time you have 10 cents or 25 cents or $1, to spend foolishly, either on your friends or yourself, think how much more useful if that 10 or 25 cents or $1 would be invested in a book, and so invest it. It may be just the thing you have been looking for to give you a thought by which you may win the heart of the world. The 10 cents, 25 cents, or $1, therefore, may turn out to be an investment of worth to the extent of $1 million. Never lend anybody the book that you want. You will never get it back. Never allow anybody to go to your bookshelf in your absence, because the very book that you may not want most, the very book that you may want the most may be taken from the shelf, and you may never be able to get that one of a kind again. If you have a library of your own, lock it when you are not at home. Spend most of your spare time in your library. If you have a radio, keep it in your own library and use it exhaustively to listen to lectures, recitals, speeches, and good music. You can learn a lot from the radio. You can be inspired a lot by good music. Good music carries the sentiment of harmony, and you may think many a good thought out of listening to good music. Read a chapter of the Bible every day, Old and New Testaments. The greatest wisdom of the old age, the greatest wisdom of the old age is to be found in the scriptures. You can always quote from the scriptures. It's the quickest way of winning approval.
Let's stop for questions.
Any questions?
Lady President trying to get a break.
Okay, we keep moving. Okay.
Ooh. Oh my goodness. You're doing great, but this lesson is just long. Any questions though? Lady President, you want me to read at all, or you good?
You want to read, President?
I can. Okay. Tragedy of White Injustice. Read and study thoroughly the poem Tragedy of White Injustice and apply its sentiment and statements in connection with the historic character and behavior of the white man. Know it so well as always to be on guard against any professions of the white man in his suggested friendship for the Negro. The poem exposes the white man's behavior and history and is intended to suggest distrust of him in every phase of life. Never allow it to get into the hands of a white man if possible. You can improve your English as you go along by reading critically the books of language. That is to say, you must pay close attention to the construction of sentences and paragraphs as you see them in books you read. Imitate the style. Read with observation, never read carelessly and recklessly. In reading books written by white authors of whatsoever kind, be aware of the fact that they are not written for your particular benefit or for the benefit of your race. They always write from their own point of view and only in the interest of their own race. Never swallow wholly what the white man writes or says without first critically analyzing it and investigating it. The white man's trick is to deceive other people for his own benefit and profit. Always be on your guard against him in whatsoever he does. Never take chances with him. His school books in his elementary and high schools, colleges, and university are all fixed up to suit his own purposes, to put him on top and keep him on top of other people. Don't trust him. Beware, beware. You should study carefully the subject of ethnology. It is the subject that causes races to know the difference between one race and another. Ethnic relationships are important, for they reveal the characteristics of one people as different from another. There is no doubt that each race has different habits and manners of behavior. We must know them so as to be able to deal with them. There are books on this subject in the library. In your reading and searching for truth, always try to get that which is particularly helpful to the Negro. Every thought that strikes you, see how it fits with the Negro and to what extent you can use it to his benefit or in his behalf. Your entire possession must never be, your entire obsession must be to see things from the Negro's point of view, remembering always that you are a Negro striving for Negro supremacy in every department of life, so that any truth you see or any facts you gather must be twisted to suit the Negro psychology of things. The Negro system of today hides the truth as far as the Negro is concerned. Therefore, you must searchingly scan everything you read, particularly history, to see what you can pick out for the good of your race. For instance, you will read that the Egyptians were a great people, the Carthaginians, Libyans, etc., but you will not be told that they were black people or Negroes. Therefore, you should go beyond the mere statement of these events to discover the truth that will be credible to your race. Therefore, in a case like that, you would ask, where did the Libyans, Carthaginians, or Egyptians get their civilization from? Give me 1 second. I gotta send another invitation.
Let me keep reading, President.
1 second. 1 second. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Lady President, can you see the screen?
Following that kind of investigation, you will come upon the truth that was all original Negro and subsequently became Negroid. That is to say, subsequent people were mixed with other people's blood who were no doubt conquered by the Negro. As a fact, the original Egyptians were black men, excuse me, were black men and women, and so the Carthaginians and like Libyans, and so the Carthaginians and Libyans, thank you, son. But in the later centuries, they became mixed in blood, just as the blacks are being mixed in America. Blacks are being mixed in America and the West Indies by the infusion of white blood through the domination of the white man. Never yield to any statement in history or a statement made by any individual caring not how great that the Negro was nobody in history. Even if you cannot prove it, always claim that the Negro was great. Read everything you can get read by Negroes and their ancestry, going back 6,000 years. There are statements in the Bible in the Old and New Testament to show that black was always an important color among the races of men. Abraham had company with a black woman, even though he had his wife Sarah, whom he had Ishmael. All the original pharaohs was black. Tutankhamun.
Tutankhamun. Yeah.
Tutankhamun.
Yes.
whose bones
that's
and
King.
body
King Tut.
Tutankhamun, whose
Two
bones
Tut
and
Southern.
That's King Tut.
Yes.
whose bones and body were dug up not very long ago at Luxor in
Luxor.
Egypt.
Luxor.
Luxor,
Yes.
Luxor in Egypt was a black pharaoh. The Sphinx in Egypt, which was stood through the millenniums, has black features. It is evident that as art, it was portrayed to teach us the greatness of men. When you are dealing with Jews, let them know that they were once your slaves in Egypt, if you have to say so. There is good grounds for saying that civilization started in Africa and passed from and through northern Africa into southern Europe, from which the Greeks and Romans and the people of Asia Minor made good copies. The swarthy color of the Asiatics and the brunette color of the southern Europeans are due to the fact that the culture and civilized blacks of African mix their blood with them. The swarthy color of the Asiatics and the brunette color of the Southern Europeans are due to the fact that the culture and civilized blacks of Africa mix their blood with them. Search all history and all literature and the Bible and find facts to support this argument and hold it with the grip that will never loosen. Things that may not be true can be made so if you repeat them long and often enough. Therefore, always repeat statements that will give your race status and advantage. That is how the white man has built up his system of superiority. He is always telling you he is superior, and he has written history and lectures to prove it. You must do the same. One of the great backgrounds for your argument, which cannot be disputed, is that you are older than any other man as a race because you are black. Your argument is that in nature, everything by way of age darkens. Because you are darker than the rest of men, proves logically that you are older than the rest of men. And another proof is that even among white people, they grow darker in skin as they grow older in age in a lifetime. If one individual were to live for 6,000 years, he would surely not be white. If he were born white, he would be as dark as the darkest of men. Therefore, the argument that the black man is black because as man he is older than the other man is good. Use it everywhere you go to defeat the white man and his belief that you sprung from something else. Use the argument that the white man is white because most of the time when the black man was great in Africa, use the argument that the white man is white because most of the time when the black man was great in Africa and had succeeded in running him across the Mediterranean into Southern Europe, he had to hide himself in caves where there was very little light and air. He was almost covered up for the most of the time in darkness and natural. Hey, be quiet. He was almost covered up for the most of the time in darkness. In natural creation, the child in the womb of the mother is almost white. Even though it is a black child, it is almost born white and doesn't change color until it comes in contact with light and air. Living in caves for as many centuries, the white man therefore became colorless, and the length of time made it so that he was born naturally white. You must interpret anthropology. Thank you, Greg. To suit yourself. The thing for you to do is refute every pertinent statement of the white man that tends to degrade you and elevate him. Turn the tables on him and search for all reasons in the world you can find to justify it. That is how new thoughts are given out by creation. Never yield to the statement of your inferiority. In reading Christian literature and accepting the doctrine of Jesus Christ, lay special claims to your association with Jesus and the Son of God. show that while the white and yellow worlds, that is to say, the worlds of Europe and Asia Minor, persecuted and crucified Jesus, the Son of God, it was the black race through Simon, the black Cyrenian, who befriended the Son of God and took up the cross and bore it alongside of him up to the heights of Calvary. Therefore, the Roman Catholics have no rightful claim to the cross, nor any other professing Christian before the Negro makes his claim. The cross is the property of the Negro in his religion because it was he who bore it. Never admit that Jesus Christ was a white man, otherwise he could not be the Son of God and the God to redeem all mankind. Jesus Christ had the blood of all races in his veins, and tracing the Jewish race back to Abraham and to Moses, from which Jesus sprang through the line of Jesse. You would find Negro blood everywhere. Therefore, Jesus had mostly Negro blood in him. Read the genealogical tree of Jesus in the Bible, and you will learn from where he sprang. It is a fact that the white man has borrowed his civilization from other peoples. The first civilization was the Negroes, black people. The second civilization was the brown peoples, Indians. The third civilization belonged to the yellow people, the Chinese or the Mongols. The last civilization up to the present belongs to the white man. All civilization goes back to the black man in the Nile Valley of Africa. Therefore, in your reading, search for all of these facts. Never stop reading and never stop until you find the proof of them. You must pay great attention to sociology. Get the best books on the subject that you can and read through them, thoroughly. Find out the social relationship among other races so that you may know how to advise your people in their social behavior. Never admit that the Negro is more immortal than the white man. Try to prove the contrary. Socially, the white man has debunked and debates all other races because of his dominant power. He is responsible for more illegitimacy among the races than any other race. He has left he has okay, that's what I said. He has left bastard children everywhere he has been. Therefore, he is not competent to say that he is socially and morally purer than any other race. The mixed population among Negroes from slavery to the present in certain countries is due to the white man's immorality. Therefore, if you should hear anyone talking about moral depravity among Negroes and the moral excellence of the whites, draw the above facts to their attention. When through reading and research you have discovered any new fact helpful to the dignity, prestige, character, and accomplishment of the Negro, always make a noise about it. You should always keep with you a notebook and fountain pen or inevitable pencil and make a note in that book of anything you hear or see that you would like to remember. Hey, be quiet. Always keep at home a larger notebook in which you must transfer the thought or experience so that it will not be lost to your memory. At least once every 3 months, read over that book, and as the book becomes more voluminous with facts, read over it at least once a year. Excuse me. By constantly reading these facts, they will be planted in your subconscious mind, and you will be able to use them without even knowing that you were doing so. By keeping your facts and your very important experiences on record, at the end of the full life, you may have a volume of great value, such as Elbert Hubbard's scrapbook. Excuse me. Get a copy of this book. It contains valuable inspiration. Always have a thought. Always make it a beautiful thought. The world is attracted to beauty, either in art or expression. Therefore, try to read, think, and speak beautiful things. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever God may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bulging of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishment the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my
I'm the
soul.
captain of my soul.
Invictus by W.E. Henry.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, my sister.
Yes, excellent job. That
Thank you.
Welcome.
completes the reading for lesson 1. We have about 9 minutes. I'll open the floor for questions, comments. Yeah, just open the floor. Okay, gotta provoke the discussion.
Yeah, one brief comment. I can greatly see Garvey's Christian influence here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I see is perfectionism and is striving for excellence in being an intellectual.
Yes. Yeah. He definitely promotes us to be well-rounded and well-studied. But I think for me, part of that summarizes in the last statement before the poem. And this is a question, so keep it in mind. The world is attracted to beauty, either by art or in expression. Therefore, try to read, think, and speak beautiful things. But as we collect all of this knowledge over the years and months, when we project that knowledge eloquently, it will be seen as something beautiful. It'll be seen as something that people will naturally be attracted to. So, but yeah, lady, go ahead, Mama Mina. Mama Mina,
I'm sorry.
were you gonna say something? Okay, we got 5 minutes. I did want to go over a couple questions since we have some time. Give us a head start on next week. First question from the reading: when must we stop learning and stop reading?
You must never stop learning.
Absolutely. Never stop learning, never stop reading. No one's ever too old to learn. Just me staying humble and always understanding that we should be reading, we should be learning. This is Garvey's words. What was Garvey's view on poetry? What did he say about poetry?
He says it's inspirational creativity. It inspires creativity.
Inspiration is the word. Read the best poetry for inspiration. Always select the best poets for your inspirational urge. But he also said there's good poetry and bad poetry. So that's advice, he advises to pursue the good poetry. But for inspiration, he promotes poetry. And obviously we should know Garvey was a poet.
Mm-hmm.
What was Garvey's view on history? It's a
He said
fundamental
it was
fundamental part of this lesson.
he said it was important
It was important. Did he say
because
why it was important or what type of history was important?
different kinds of history. History on science, history on basically as many things as you can get your hands on. And
Yes.
he talks about the importance of history and understanding your today, and the importance of reading today so you can understand your tomorrow, so to speak.
I don't have the page, but the quote is, read history incessantly until you master it. Primarily the history of man. You can only make the best of life by knowing and understanding it. To know, you must fall back on the intelligence of others who came before you and have left their records. So, history of man, he emphasized biographies and autobiographies, but as Sister Diane said, he's still promoted being well-rounded. So, but the big thing I want people to take away, primarily the history of man. I don't expect everybody to know all the types of history. What was Garvey's view on language?
He says to study the origin of languages, especially your language, the language that you speak.
Yes.
He said to master it, not just for writing it, but also knowing the origin. Like English, you should know Latin, where the language comes from.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Talked about, knowing sentence structure, paragraph structure. So it's quite a bit that he mentioned. What I got is, to be able to read intelligently, you must first be able to master the language of your country, grammar and science of language every 6 months. Those who hear you become disgusted and will not pay much attention to you, but in their hearts will laugh after you. So again, as I said, like that last sentence of being something beautiful. There's a lesson 4. We'll talk about elocution specifically, but foundationally, we have to, this is lesson 1. We have to understand language. We have to understand grammar, specifically the language that we speak. Everything that we say, everything that we write is an example of who we are as individuals. So whether we attract or repel people, our language will play a major part in that, and how we master language. Questions, comments? Last question, and we'll close out and we'll pick up next week. What subjects should we never write or speak about, and why?
Subjects that we are not knowledgeable about, because it'll make us look foolish and people will laugh at us behind our backs.
Absolutely, Sister Diane, you killing it right now. Never write or speak on a subject you know nothing about. There's always somebody who knows that particular subject to laugh at you or to ask you embarrassing questions that may make others laugh at you. Never, therefore, attempt anything without being able to protect yourself on it. For every time you are defeated, it takes away from your prestige and you are not as respected as before. So don't make yourself look bad. You will lose your reputation and it'll be hard to recover it. So to avoid that, he advises us not to speak on things that we don't know about. Later in lesson 2, he will say that a leader always has the responsibility to speak. Anytime you're given the opportunity, we're supposed to speak. So you got to put those two together and really emphasize lesson 1 of being well-rounded. We never know when we will be asked to speak or what we'll be asked to speak on, but we should be well-rounded enough to where we can have a basic level of knowledge of several topics, and we can speak on things without speaking from a place of complete ignorance. Any questions, comments? It's 9:36. We're 1 minute after. We'll pick up with the questions from lesson 1 next week, and we'll go through lesson 2. Lesson 2 is fairly short, so we'll probably be able to do the reading and the questions at the same time. Any questions before we close out? Nobody? Ross Marvin, I saw you were able to join us. You're still here. Okay, he dropped off. So yeah, as I said, we'll
Thank you.
Mama Mina.
I just said thank you for the lesson.
Yes. Brother Nkosi, I do apologize. We did start at 8. I didn't get you the message until later. I do apologize. Next week, I'll make that correction. And I'll send you the recordings for tonight as well as last week. I guess everybody ready to shut it down, get some rest.
Brother John,
Yes,
is
ma'am.
this Saturday going to be our Collard Green Festival?
Yes, Collard Green Festival Saturday. I'll send a reminder probably Friday. I'll try to get the flyer and share that in the group.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. We will have an executive meeting Thursday evening.
Okay.
We spoke Saturday. There was some discussions about renting out the Omen Alegrio on a monthly basis. So we got some updates and another presentation to make to the body and see where, what we can do. And I believe Lady President is working on a short presentation as well. Lady President, is that correct?
All right, thank you.
I don't know about short, but it will be in detail of the events for the rest of the year. We will be going over the 17th, the 31st, November 6th, November 21st, November 21st, and December 31st. So we'll get into detail about that for the rest of the year. So, yep.
Okay. We'll clarify that more on Thursday. Lady President, did you want to close us out?
Absolutely. Right fist in the air. Repeat after me. One God,
One God,
one aim,
one aim,
one destiny.
one destiny.
Destiny.
Africa,
Africa,
Africa.
Africans,
For the African,
The Africans.
those at home,
those
Those
at
at home.
and those abroad.
And those abroad.
Race first.
race first. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
All right. Good night.
Race first.
Race first.
Race first.